number one land and water tour in Seattle. Ride the Ducks. Good job.
You described it as a party on wheels.
There's been a terrible loss of life and there's been injuries.
Bodies, sirens, screaming.
Flowers and balloons now mark the place on the Aurora Bridge where the fatal collision happened.
I was basically in the fight for my life, our lives, 37 souls on board.
Paramedics end up rushing more than 40 victims to hospitals in King County.
As I turned my head, I heard the driver say, "Oh no."
People on the bus flew through the front of the windshield.
We were going to go head on. It's just a question of how bad it was going to be.
It's total chaos, right? I mean, there was just parts flying everywhere.
I've never seen carnage like that.
Who should be held responsible for this deadly crash?
I had a huge target right here.
The Washington Utilities and Transportation Commission has officially suspended all operations of Ride the Ducks of Seattle.
You don't have an axle just come off and a wheel come off without there being some kind of a warning sign.
The way the bow of the boat is built, and it was a Jersey barrier, we would have probably gone right over the edge. Actually, no probabilities about it. We would have careened right off. Those 5 souls gave their lives for 37 more.
I'm King 5 reporter Natalie Swaby. On September 24th, 2015, a Ride the Ducks of Seattle tour vehicle suffered a mechanical failure while crossing the Aurora Bridge. It slammed into a bus, killing 5 people and injuring many more. Join us as we revisit the crash that reshapes countless lives and the legal battles that eventually proved too much for the company to survive. On the Aurora Bridge
was one of the city's darkest days on a sunny morning.
On September 24, 2015,
This is a very fluid situation.
disaster strikes.
There's been a terrible loss of life and there's been injuries.
I remember when I even heard about what happened, I was in trial. It was during a break. The judge announced it and I started crying.
A decade later,
it brings back all the memories of this tragedy.
the emotions are still strong.
It was a manufacturing failure. It cost lives.
I had a huge target right here. And I knew inside, deep down inside, I had nothing to do with this.
From the captain behind the wheel
Once that axle snapped, he was a passenger, not a driver.
to the company operating the tourist attraction.
It was a tragedy waiting to happen, and that's exactly what happened.
On that sunny day, just after 11 a.m., a Ride the Ducks Seattle boat made its regular tour, showing visitors Seattle's sights on water and land, while crossing the Aurora Bridge at the same time as a charter bus carrying students and staff from North Seattle College. Dashcam video captures the moment it happened. As the damage unfolds, 5 lives lost, all international students who were exploring the city on a day trip, and dozens hurt.
It was the most horrible thing.
Karen Kohler took the lead as a trial attorney representing victims in a civil lawsuit.
What I will always remember about that group of people from around the world was they all stayed together until trial.
Larry Kahn signed on as attorney for the captain, Eric Bishop.
He was facing over 50 lawsuits against him.
For months, people cast his client as the villain.
Eric is a trained, very rules-oriented captain.
Years after the tragedy, Bishop spoke out.
I was standing on the brakes with both hands trying to pull that wheel back to get her to go northbound again, back in the lanes where we're at, and she just did not respond. I did everything I possibly could.
The National Transportation Safety Board determined that engineers poorly designed the front steering knuckle assembly. A company rebuilt the Ducks from refurbished World War II-era military amphibious vehicles. In the middle of the bridge, investigators found critical evidence. The Ducks' left front wheel had come off.
How could a driver stop a World War II amphibious vehicle that had an axle housing break?
He knows that but for that bus at that time, the Duck would have likely gone off that bridge and landed 100 feet down and killed everybody aboard.
Let the people that this crash hurt.
Attorneys transformed the devastating impact into court depositions.
Everybody that appeared at that scene ended up with PTSD.
A jury held the companies behind the tourist attraction financially accountable, No one ever faced criminal charges in the case.
You took the verdict to the jury. Yes. The award for the 50 was $123 million.
The bridge continues to spark debate.
One lesson is still not learned, and that's the bridge is there looking just like it did when the vehicle crossed right over it.
Listen, anybody that drives over the Aurora Street Bridge knows it's a white-knuckle drive.
Changes were made. Ride the Duck Seattle shut down in 2020. In a statement, the company said legal issues surrounding the tragic crash were simply too much to overcome. Lawyers like Kohler claim victory.
That is the biggest legacy that we left to the community. No more.
It's an important story anytime you can hold manufacturer accountable for causing harm.
A decade later, survivors work to push forward.
Some of them have gotten married. Some of them have graduated from college. Most of them have gone back to their countries of origin. This is not going to be a time for celebration for them. It's not that kind of an anniversary. It's the opposite.
And joining us now is former King 5 journalist, retired journalist, veteran reporter Glenn Farley, who covered that crash so extensively. It is incredible, isn't it, that it's been 10 years?
Well, everything that's 10 years ago is like incredible, but this was a biggie.
Walk us through what happened, what you remember from that day.
Well, what I remember that day is we were going on another story, and we were on the I-90 bridge. We were going to Eastern Washington. I don't even remember because this kind of took over everything. And they said there's been an accident on the Aurora Bridge. At first, from what we heard, it didn't really sound like it was this bad. So we turned around and we went there, and it was like, okay, it's that bad. It's bad. I mean, you have two very, very large vehicles. You can see them in your screen. You have the duck boat, which a lot of people remember when they were running around Seattle, and you have this charter bus. And you have a collision that happened from the time that the knuckle on this steering mechanism broke to the impact. And the thing I remember most, and you can see it there in that photograph, is the tire. There's a tire, a wheel, sitting there by itself. And I'm thinking, either this is a consequence or it's a cause. And it was the cause.
In fact, that, as I was looking back at the video, what was so haunting is because the evidence to the cause of the crash was laying right there.
Right.
And you knew it when you saw it, that somehow.
Well, we didn't know for sure. I mean, there had to be an investigation.
Your gut was telling you.
But there was, I remember talking about it. I said, this is because I've covered a lot of aviation accidents, railroad accidents, other things, other highway accidents, and I'm looking at that thing and I said, that's of all the clues you're going to have, that's going to be one of the major ones.
Turned out to be key.
It was key.
For the NTSB.
Yeah.
What actually went wrong?
So,
in a nutshell.
In a nutshell, there is this sort of cylindrical thing called a steering knuckle as part of the steering mechanism. And what had happened is that had broken, and it went off with a big bang. Later, 4 years later, we interviewed, and we're going to get into this, I know, the driver of the duck. It was 0.4 seconds, less than half a second. He said it was like driving Jell-O, and they were heading northbound, veered over, and then crashed into the bus.
Basically, he lost control. You're talking
about
he didn't
have any control.
Eric Bishop, who was the driver.
Right.
We didn't hear from him for 4 years, and a lot of people wanted to blame him, even though he knew he had nothing to do with it. And in fact, he told you 4 years later, it could have been so much worse.
Well, first of all, he felt like he was the target. And he had nothing to do with this. This was a maintenance issue, it was a design issue, according to the NTSB, according to the civil trial. And he basically was in control of nothing.
Right.
One of the things that he said that I think was, there were 37 people on the duck itself. He said, had they not hit the bus, as tragic as losing 5 people on the bus was, that he is convinced that the duck would have, because of the bow, would have ridden up over the barrier, probably knocked the fence out because it's a heavy vehicle, and have taken all 37 people on the duck down.
Into the water.
Into the water, or there's a lot of land down there too.
Right.
And they could have landed in either one, sort of depending on a lot.
Could have been so much worse. And he was vindicated when this NTSB report came out because he had absolutely nothing to do with it.
Right.
And the NTSB findings ended up leading to critical changes on the duck boat, didn't
Well,
they?
one of the things that the NTSB, because I went back for the hearing, and you saw Karen Kohler, she was one of the attorneys, she was there, I remember talking to her there and several other times, was that one of the key takeaways from the NTSB is that Ride the Ducks International, which is a Missouri company that was taking these World War II vehicles, putting newer equipment inside, newer drivetrains, fixing things up, was basically operating as a auto manufacturer. But unlike Ford or Mack Trucks or any company that would have been manufacturing a vehicle, there was really no federal oversight. And some of the recommendations from the NTSB were to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, the Coast Guard, others on regulating these more.
You know, one of the questions that people had then, and maybe still have now, is why wasn't there a center barrier? People often wonder, with traffic going both directions, it's so easily, although this had nothing to do with that, but some people wonder if it could have not been as bad, that accident, if there had been a center barrier.
That's an argument that was made many times. We covered, after this accident for years, there was a lot of discussion about what should happen. There was, you got a state route, but the city of Seattle maintains that bridge. So you had a lot of back and forth. There was a lawsuit there that was this sort of went away, although there were some settlements from the city and from the state with some of the victims as well. But that, I just drove across the bridge today. It is a bunch of cones in the middle. Yeah. But the lanes are only like 9 feet 2 inches wide. I was behind a garbage truck going across it today. It's splitting the lane because that's the smartest thing. The buses will split that number 1 and number 2 lane going across. There's still no barrier up there. And the question has been argued that the barrier probably wouldn't do all that much.
Do you ever drive across that bridge without thinking about that duck boat accident?
I do, but I mean, I think about it frequently. I mean, I will sit there and look, on the curb, because there were marks left behind by that, and in the middle of the road and everything else. Those have kind of faded away. I can't say I noticed anything today. There's a lot of marks on that curb because there's been a lot of mishaps on that bridge. But yeah, I mean, it was a major crash. It was a major crash for the National Transportation Safety Board when they put a GO team out from Washington, D.C. on that. You knew at that point this was a big deal.
Coming up, survivors share their experiences of the tense moments after the crash on the Aurora Bridge.
It had the makings of a classic Seattle day. A morning that started at Pike Place Market, then Tim Gessner and his wife were off for coffee at the world's first Starbucks.
So we did that, then we went up and we got on the monorail, went over to the Space Needle to go across the street to take our duck boat tour.
At 10:30, they were 2 of dozens on a packed duck boat tour. He said he captured this image on the Aurora Avenue Bridge 1 second before this.
As I turned my head, I heard the driver say, "Oh no," and I knew we were going to go head on. It's just a question of how bad it was going to be.
With the sore neck, shoulder, and back, Gessner immediately worked to help others while his wife on a stretcher called their son.
I left work immediately and drove over there.
Cliff Steinhauer works downtown Seattle. He made it to this scene in minutes.
And there were probably half a dozen fire trucks, a dozen ambulances, police. There were a ton of EMTs and firefighters everywhere helping people.
By 11:15, the photos from the Gessner family vacation turned tragic as they witnessed EMTs try to save lives in the minutes after this horrific crash.
I've never seen such an organized effort. These people knew what they were doing.
And by 6 o'clock, Tim and his wife were released from Virginia Mason and sent back on their way. After the worst detour they could imagine.
I've never seen carnage like that before, and I'm thankful to be alive, and I'm glad that my wife is all right as well.
We were on the freeway, or I guess it was a bridge.
The bridge.
And I just remember it felt like we lost control and looked up and saw the bus headed towards us.
So we saw the bus coming, and I just grabbed my wife and I just put her down, and that's when I took off. And we both ended up in the street.
I was thrown from the bus. I immediately got up, which I probably shouldn't have done, and looked for Dad and tried to find Mom and had to lay back down. I must have blacked out, or I had my eyes closed. I remember waking up on the freeway and I saw people running towards us from their cars to check on us. I saw the liquid from the cars or the bus. I was worried about explosions for some odd reason, and then I saw people running towards us to check and make sure we were okay. Bodies, sirens, screaming, a lot of people yelling, "Call 911." It was very surreal.
When I landed, I was looking right at it, and I'm going, there's no tire. There was red fluid and everything. I'm going, damn.
Yeah.
And then I looked at the bus, and I go, oh. And then I looked down, I saw her, and I took care of her.
But I saw my dad, and it was scary seeing his face with blood all over it. I kept trying to tell him, get a Kleenex and get it off your face.
I actually walked away, so I was released yesterday.
Lucky guy. We'll be here for a while.
I'm thinking I definitely need to get out of the way, right? So I yanked the wheel to the left. I turned into oncoming lane of traffic to avoid a direct collision with the ducks. The subsequent head-on I had with this smaller SUV, when we came to a stop, really I had little fear left because, you know, we were both on our brakes at that point.
When Mark got out of his truck, he found himself right in the middle of the crash scene.
To be people that were thrown from the scene of the impact to 20 to 30 feet. It's total chaos, right? I mean, there was just parts flying everywhere. Of course, the crash. I got jostled around. We finally came to a stop. It was just terrible. There was so many people and so much pain. I could tell what was going on. I just couldn't wrap my mind around it. I didn't know how to help. When I think about how close I came to what could have happened, I really think about how lucky I am to be walking down the bridge right now.
I was heading to work. I'd just gone to Home Depot and picked up supplies.
Joshua McConnell was driving south on the Aurora Bridge Thursday morning on his way to a construction job when he saw some commotion in the distance.
I saw a lot of people turning around, and I couldn't do that.
At a time when some people could have stayed back and spared themselves the horror of what had just happened, McConnell jumped right in.
I knew people were going to need help. I didn't know entirely what I could do, but I know that I had to try.
He first ran to the duck boat and tried to get the injured driver off the vehicle.
He just looked at me and said, no, not till my people are off. His first concern was the passengers.
McConnell helped guide some of the dazed and dizzy passengers into safer positions so they wouldn't fall. Then he went to the motor coach.
I could tell it was pretty bad.
He helped a first responder carry some medical equipment on board. But it quickly became apparent there wasn't much they could do to help the most gravely wounded.
I was there when people were fading away, and that still goes through my head.
In the middle of such chaos, McConnell and other drivers offered reassurance that help was on the way.
You know, until they showed up, it was on us.
When faced with a tough choice, they didn't think twice.
Definitely something that will change me for a long time to come.
Coming up, already struggling with legal issues, Ride the Ducks of Seattle closed after the COVID-19 pandemic hit. The lawsuits and financial fallout overwhelmed Ride the Ducks of Seattle, forcing the company to file for bankruptcy by 2020.
3 weeks before the fatal duck boat crash, Claudia Derschmidt's youngest son remembers moving to Seattle from Austria with his mom.
How old were you then?
Und wie alt waren Sie dann?
50.
Today, Felix Derschmidt told jurors how close he and his mother were.
We just always got along so well, and I could trust her with everything. I could tell her everything. If I had problems, if I was afraid of going for a sleepover or somewhere with class, then I could talk to her, and I'd usually feel much better about it after I talked to her.
Claudia Derschmidt was one of the North Seattle college students riding on this tour bus when the Ride the Ducks vehicle slammed into them on the Aurora Bridge in September of 2015. Her older son Moritz remembers the last time they spoke over Skype.
It was right before she got on that bus, and we had a very nice conversation. I remember it was a nice conversation, and I'm so happy I got to speak with her once more.
The younger son, who texted with her frequently, testified he knew something was wrong when she didn't answer that day. Then he heard about the crash. The wait was agonizing. It wasn't until hours later that he received official word.
Well, we just walked and we're crying, and we told ourselves it can't be true, this can't be happening.
What Felix feared became reality, leaving 2 teenage boys without their mom.
She will not be there for my life events. She won't be there if I get married on my wedding day. She doesn't get to know my girlfriend that I have now. It's hard to say. I miss her every day.
I'd like to call Mr. Brian Tracy. All right, Mr. Tracy?
Brian Tracy is the longtime owner of Ride the Ducks in Seattle.
Do you feel personally responsible for the accident?
I do. It was
the worst day of my life.
Plaintiffs say safety took a back seat in Seattle's Ducks behind making the business entertaining and profitable.
You described it as a party on wheels.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Yes.
The plaintiff said Tracy and his key management staff had no formal training.
The way that you really learn best is by actually doing it, not going to a school. There was no school about how to run an amphibious vehicle company.
Lawyers showed this whiteboard highlighting the numerous times the company's chief mechanic asked to hire more mechanics to maintain the fleet of World War II amphibious vehicles.
You don't hire mechanics until the need is there, and we didn't feel the need was there.
Well, you didn't feel the need was there, but didn't your head mechanic feel the need was there?
My operations manager didn't. He thought it was a scheduling problem.
In 2015, a duck rammed a charter bus on the Aurora Bridge, killing 5 people and injuring 60 after a front axle snapped. It's the same part that this service bulletin 2 years earlier warned needed strengthening, a warning that was not heeded by the Seattle company.
No knowledge of the service bulletin.
Plaintiff's lawyers said the company long had a pattern of ignoring service bulletins.
Were you aware that approximately 80% of the service bulletins from RTDI were not addressed by your company?
I was not aware of that.
Why weren't you aware of that?
Because service bulletins never got to my desk.
In spite of these problems, Tracy insists that safety was a top priority and the crash was not a result of his company's recklessness.
We did everything that we could do, knowing what we knew.
The duck boat crash receives national attention as it becomes a major case for the National Transportation Safety Board, which showed this video taken from a dash camera of the collision. There was an investigation by the state, and now the legal civil case wraps up. Who should pay for all that damage, potentially worth $300 million?
A little I, Claim 1, product construction defect. Did Ride the Ducks International supply a product that was not reasonably safe in construction at the time the product left Ride the Ducks International's control? Answer, yes.
And the list goes on. The bulk of the blame, more than 2/3 of the liability, placed on Ride the Ducks International, the Missouri-based manufacturer that rebuilt duck boats used by local tour operators around the country. And in Seattle, that tour operator is Ride the Ducks Seattle, which was assessed between 30 to 33% of the blame, cited for not fulfilling its duties as a company offering rides to passengers. Much of the testimony involving maintenance and whether Ride the Ducks Seattle carried out repairs, service bulletins sent out by the manufacturer of the ducks.
Juror 6, is this your verdict?
Yes.
Is it the verdict of the jury?
Yes.
In dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's, Judge Catherine Schaefer polls the jurors over a range of more than 50 questions they needed to decide as to who was liable and for how much. There is very little dissension.
Is it the verdict of the jury? Yes.
What the jury just did is exactly what my clients hoped for.
Karen Kohler leads the case for the plaintiffs. More than $123 million awarded, $25 million to one of the students aboard the bus.
Just relief and joy and honor that we were able to convince 12 people without a doubt that the ducks are horrible. Maybe this will help them get off the streets. Maybe this will make some change for the duck industry that will make a difference.
I was basically in the fight for my life, our lives, 37 souls on board. That steering wheel first felt like jello for just about a millisecond. I was standing on the brakes with both hands trying to pull that wheel back to get her to go northbound again, back in the lanes where we're at, and she just did not respond. I did everything I possibly could.
Today, the driver of the duck goes public with his story for the first time. As bad as it was, it could have been a lot worse.
If that bus wasn't there, there'd been 37 souls lost. The way the bow of the boat is built, and it was a Jersey barrier, we would have probably gone right over the edge. Actually, no probabilities about it. We would have careened right off.
And you're in the middle of the span. You had a long way down.
We had a long way down. So those 5 souls gave their lives for 37 more. I had a huge target right here. And I knew inside deep down inside, I had nothing to do with this. I was but a passenger. I knew that. But it was trying to tell the people out there, say, hey, whoa, I had nothing to do with this. And until the NTSB report came out, it's like being on pins and needles. You can't sleep. I mean, you just really can't describe it.
Bishop says he still feels twinges of pain from his broken ribs and thinks about those who died.
And there's not a day that goes by when I don't think of them. And that's going to be for the rest of my life.
Thank you for joining us as we reflect on this tragic chapter of Seattle's history. For King 5, I'm Natalie Swaby.